Hi witches! So today I wanted to do a video on budget witch tips. So this is something that I see gets asked a lot, the idea of not having very much money to be able to purchase lots of things. And like I've said before, you don't need lots of money to practice witchcraft, and anyone that tells you otherwise doesn't know what they're doing. So I'm here to tell you some of my top tips for if you are practicing witchcraft and you're on a budget. I also will link down below a thread which we have on the Australian Witchcraft Facebook group, which has not only these tips but some other tips that other members have suggested as budget witch tips. So let's get started. So the first tip is probably a very obvious one, but it is to recycle and repurpose your glass jars. So you don't need to go out and buy glass jars. There are plenty which are available to you in your pantry. So this jar came from some pasta sauce. I then painted the lid with nail polish. That's my other tip, is that if you don't like the color of the lids, paint them with nail polish. I've done the same to this one. This one's purple to match the contents. But yeah, this was a pasta sauce jar. This was a jar of pesto. This one came from, I think it was like curry paste from Aldi. And then they are similar to ones that you can purchase from witch shops. So this is one of the jars from Juniper Moon Apothecary. She no longer sells them in these jars. But I mean, if you really want, you can buy these hexagonal jars, like buy a pack of 20 of them, but you really don't need to, because there are so many jars which you can get for free, or just, you know, which you are actually saving from going in the recycling bin. So yeah, have a look around your supermarket next time you go shopping and see what things you like the look of their jars. And as I said, don't worry about the color of the lids. I paint mine with nail polish. This was black nail polish. I've then stuck a label on it. This was purple nail polish. So yeah, 2 budget witch tips. Reuse your glass jars and then paint the lids with nail polish if you don't like the colors. If you have trouble getting the labels off of them, my tips are hot soapy water, not even warm soapy water, like hot soapy water. Steel wool, which you can get from like the cleaning section in supermarkets. It's basically just like a big bundle of steel and you scrub with it. And then if you have any like sticky residue left on there, you can actually clean it off with oil. Doesn't matter what kind of oil it is. A lot of people say you need to use eucalyptus oil. I use olive oil. Any oil will do it. You just like pop it on and you just kind of keep rubbing it, and eventually it'll dissolve all the sticky stuff. So yeah, you don't need to buy fancy goo removers. Yeah, hot soapy water, steel wool, and then some oil to get rid of any sticky stuff, and you've got yourself lots of glass jars. I'm going to show these more in an upcoming video on my herbal apothecary. So you'll see I use lots of these jars. I like having them all the same size, but you don't need to. That's just personal preference. The next category is altar decorations. So I know that you've seen all of the beautiful statues that are out there, and they're all very, very expensive, but you don't need to buy them. And the other thing is you can actually also bring in other correspondences into your altar, even if you don't have them. I'm going to show you. So one of my favorite things to do, particularly if I'm working with different deities and they're not a deity which I maybe have a strong connection to, I'm only going to work with them for a little while just to build that relationship, or maybe I'm testing the waters to see if it is a deity I'm interested in working with longer term. I use oracle cards as like decoration. So for example, this is the Black Mirror Oracle deck by Jessica Shaw. It's no longer in print, but you can use, there are so many other different oracle decks which have deities on them. Like god and goddess decks. There are so many out there. This is the one I have. This is the one that I use, but you can use any one. So for example, like if I was working with Hecate, I would put this up on my altar. I'd put like a crystal in front so it doesn't fall over. You can get fancy card holder stands, whatever. But you can use these as a representation on your altar instead of having to buy like a statue. You can just use these. Likewise, let's say you don't have oracle cards. If you have a printer, you can print out a picture. You can add that to your altar. You want to pop it in a frame, make it look nice, do whatever you like, but you definitely don't need to buy statues. You can use pictures, you can use cards, whatever you have. So like Deity is a really good one. The other thing I like with this particular deck, but there are lots of decks out there, is that this has planetary cards as well. So if you want to bring in the energy of a certain planet into your workings, you might want to look into astrological timing. There are apps around. I use one called Astro Clock to figure out what hour like the planet is, what planetary hour it is. So then you can bring in that extra energy just to help you focus. So like this is the card for Saturn. Or maybe you want to work with a particular elemental energy. So then, for example, you might want to pull up a card to work with, say, the element of water or the element of fire. You can also use tarot decks for this. So, for example, the Ace of Wands, there's fire. The Ace of Pentacles, there's your earth element. Like you can use your tarot cards as well for things like that. Even let's say you want to work with the element of a certain crystal. You don't have that crystal. Crystal Oracle decks. I have talked about this one before. This is the Crystal Connections cards by Adam Barrett. I really like this one because they're actual photos rather than like illustrations. So for example, I don't have Herkimer Diamond. I don't have Amber. I don't have Blue Lace Agate. I can pull out these cards and put them on my altar to help represent the energies. Yes, it's not the same, but it's still something. Another deck which is really good for this, which is quite readily available, is the Liminal Spirits Oracle by Lara Tempest Starcroft. This is a really good deck. It's called the Witch's Spirit cards for a reason. I'm going to show you a couple of cards that I really like. Watch me pull out half the deck. So there are a lot of animal cards in here. There's lots of different animal oracle decks you can also use if you want to pull in that animal energy. But so for example, I've got snail. Not that I need snail cards because I've got snails. But anyway, time, peacock, owl, Mandrake. If you don't have access to Mandrake, you want to bring in the energy in a working Mandrake. Snake. Roots. You want to connect with that earthy energy or connect with your ancestors. This is a really good card to use to focus on. Inspiration with the cauldron. Ocean. Bone. Like you can use all these as representations on your altar even if you don't have those physical things. So that's a really good budget option as well. The next thing I want to talk about is candles. So candles are something that a lot of witches use in their practice. If you also use candles but you're on a budget, there's a few different options. Birthday candles are a really good alternative for spell candles. You can get them in any supermarket. They're really cheap. They burn out really quickly. They come in all sorts of colors. So you can use birthday candles. That is okay. You are not less of a witch because you don't have a $20 spell candle. You can use birthday candles. That's fine. You can also get your candles from dollar stores. I know that a lot of witches say not to, and I understand the reasons. I don't personally buy them from dollar stores because I'm lucky enough that I don't need to. But if that's all that I could afford, I would be buying those candles from dollar stores. And in the past, this is exactly what I had to do. People say not to buy them because sometimes they might contain lead in the wicks. They say that there might be like wax additives that when you burn them, they produce like toxins and chemicals. Look, general advice when you're burning candles anyway is to light them in a ventilated space. So open a window, you know, things like that. So you can definitely use them. A lot of times they will be scented. You're allowed to use scented candles. It is okay. So if a candle is scented, that is fine. Look, you might even want to try and use a scent which aligns with your intention. So like, let's say purple candles are often lavender scented. Okay, so that would be really good for a calming spell. You can still use it for a protection spell. Purple and lavender work great for protection as well. So don't be put off by the fact that a candle is scented. I add scents to my own candles that I make, and that's completely fine. The next thing as well is to reuse your candle wax. And part of that is learn to make your own candles. Now, this candle doesn't look like much. It's not one of my best candles. It's probably one of my worst candles, and that's completely fine. Palm wax is a tricky thing. But this was just made with scraps of palm wax that I had. I actually didn't use any fresh palm wax. This was all candles that I previously made before and just the leftovers. And I actually made more candles than this, but this was my pillow candle I made. So if you look into candle making, you can save so much money and make your own candles. Yes, the initial outlay for things like molds is expensive, but you can actually also make candles in like tins, which I use a lot. You can make them in, I've seen people make them out of Pringles containers as like a mold. Yeah, there are so many different options, but basically all you need is a pot to heat boiling water in A metal container to melt your wax in, and that is only used for melting wax, so that you don't need to worry about it getting super clean to be used for food. Just use it for wax only. If you've got like a thermometer for like candy, so I think they're called candy thermometers, but again, you don't actually need that. And yeah, that's about it. Wicks. You need something to light it, so wicks. But that's it. So yeah, something to pour it into, wicks and wax, which you've probably got leftover wax anyways. Look into making your own candles. I really love doing it. I always encourage other people to do it, and you can really go creative with it. You can add in all sorts of things. You can add in your own herbs and things like that. So yeah, make your own candles. Part of making your own candles as well, if you're not interested in using your leftover wax, that's completely fine. One more thing though is if you are making your own candles, don't melt it in the microwave. It can catch fire. It's really, really bad. Don't do it. Hot water, boiling method, double boiler. It'll work, trust me. So part of making your own candles as well, if you're not interested in all of that stuff, that's completely fine. But look into making your own rolled beeswax candles. These are super easy to make. Often candle shops have workshops to teach kids how to make this because they're so easy. All you need is the wax sheets, which come in all sorts of different colors, the wick, and then you can make so many with them. And so it's really economical because you can make so many of them. Particularly if you do prefer to use beeswax candles, this is a really good option. You can just buy like a candle making kit. They're really not expensive. I can leave a link to the one that I use down below. I've had really good experiences with that candle shop for candle making supplies. But then yeah, you can like make them in all sorts of colors and shapes and sizes, and yeah, super easy. So rolled beeswax candles. I've got a tutorial on my channel. I'll link to it. Herbs. So herbs is something that you can spend a lot of money on, particularly if you get them from witchcraft shops, but you don't need to. Plenty of supermarkets have ample herbs. Also, don't just look down the herb aisle. Go get yourself some tea. So for instance, peppermint. Peppermint is something that I don't use a lot of. But I do drink a lot of peppermint tea. So if I need peppermint, I'll cut open one of these tea bags, and it's just like finely ground peppermint. And I can smell it now. This is really fresh. Look, I do recommend this brand, Narada. They are Australian. I think most, if not all, of their teas are actually grown in Australia. Whenever I open them, they just smell super duper fresh. So yeah, I drink these all the time. I love tea, but you can also totally use them in witchcraft. So yeah, look for like herbal teas. Just make sure that when you're like reading the back of it, I actually look at the ingredients. So the ingredients for this is just organic peppermint, and that's it. But sometimes they might have other things in there. So just check that it's actually the herb and not just like a flavoring. The other thing is to check out international grocery stores. So what I mean by that is things like the Asian grocery stores, the Indian grocery stores, the Mediterranean or Greek grocery stores. They have so many herbs and things in there that you won't find in your local supermarket that you might want for witchcraft. For example, juniper berries. I found these in a really big pack for like $3 in an Asian supermarket, and yeah, clearly I haven't even used all of them because there's so many in there. And then I just stuck a label on there, which I got from a witchcraft subscription box. This is from my Muses Mystery box. They sent juniper berries, and so I just reused the label. You can even make your own though. The other thing is that sometimes these international supermarkets, they might actually have like a wholesale store, and a lot of them do wholesale to the public. So for example, in Adelaide, I always go to Gaganis Brothers in Hindmarsh or Theberton. I forget which suburb exactly, but they have a huge warehouse, and you can get so many things in giant bags. So I'll show you a photo of a 1 kilo bag of bay leaves for all of the witchcraft that you could possibly need. But yeah, so wholesalers have amazing prices. If you do use a lot of herbs, I would highly suggest you go there. But the other thing is as well, don't go too crazy on herbs, because herbs have a finite shelf life. So for example, I have a lot of lavender here, yes, but I use lavender all the time, and this is food grade lavender, so I can use it in tea as well.
Note, by food grade, I meant safe for consumption. Many varieties of lavender are high in camphor, which can make you very sick if consumed in something like a tea.
I previously bought this much, I bought like 2 or 3 jars like this size of lavender. It wasn't food grade, I could only use it in witchcraft, and it ended up losing its colour, losing its scent, lost its energy, and I had to compost a lot of it because I just couldn't use it. It had no energy left. So don't go too crazy on herbs. You don't need to have all the herbs. I'm going to do a whole video on my herbs though, so keep an eye out for that. The other thing is to wild harvest. So this is a fancy way of saying find it growing somewhere in your neighborhood and carefully take some. So for example, rosemary, that's a really common one. It grows literally everywhere. I've seen it outside schools, I've seen it outside libraries, I've seen it in the middle of roundabouts, everywhere. So yeah, have a look around like your local parks, your local neighborhood. There's also a website which I will try and remember to link down below, which actually you can like type in your location and it will tell you around your local area what species of plants there are. So for example, if you were looking for like a specific variety of eucalyptus, you can find if that's in your area or not. Yeah, so that's really good. But wild harvesting, just make sure that you do it carefully. So for example, don't take heaps. Like if someone's got a lavender bush and it's growing over onto like the public area, don't take like tons and tons of it. Like, you know, take what you need, don't take too much. And the other thing is be careful. I wouldn't consume anything that I've like wild harvested because you don't know if it's been sprayed with pesticides. You don't know if it's been watered with water that's not meant to be for human consumption, like all of that. So just be really careful. Now for incense. So incense is something that I know that a lot of witches use a lot of as well. And there are some different ways that you can save money on incense. So first, I just want to show you because I'm holding it in my hand. This is my DIY incense holder. So this was a Pringles container. I've covered it with paper. I've had it for like years, and so the paper's wearing out. I've got some washi tape at the top. But basically, it's just an incense container, and I think I found a tutorial for this on YouTube or Pinterest or something. Yeah, and it's super easy. And so this, because it's got the lid on it, it actually seals in all of your scent as well, so it's perfect. And yeah, it didn't cost me anything to make. So that's one DIY tip. And then the next one is with incense to shop around, but also don't buy every pack of incense, because I cannot tell you how many times I've had to throw away a pack of incense because I cannot stand the smell. And I don't want to subject anyone else to it either. I'm all about regifting. Some of these incense scents, I'm just like, no. Nobody wants this in their life. So for example, I don't often buy the brand Hem. There's a couple of scents in there I don't mind, but sometimes when I smell too much of them, I can't stand them. So for example, I really like one called the Moon. I also quite like the Egyptian Jasmine one, but I don't buy them all the time. And also there's so many sticks in there, they last me forever. But I usually don't buy Hem incense because I find that their scents can be really hit or miss, and most of the time they're a huge miss. So brands that I do really like. So you probably already know the Sacha brand, which are really famous for making Nag Champa. They make a whole lot of different varieties as well. So like I really love this Nag Champa Nirvana one. And I was so lucky that Pandora Lacora sent me this, thank you. But yeah, they are a brand that I really like. They have so many different scents. These are all of my Sacha incense. So I've got Dragon's Blood, I've got Nag Champa, I've got Mystic Yoga, I've got Nirvana, I've got Jasmine, I've got Sacred Ritual. I've got so many of their scents. I really like them. So yeah, they're one of my favorite brands, and they're really cheap, and you can even find them in like dollar stores as well. I've seen them in like smaller supermarkets as well. So yeah, with incense, figure out what brands you like and stick to it. Another brand that I really like is called Moon Dance. So these are a little bit more expensive. They have less sticks in them. but they smell amazing. I use these all the time in ritual. They're a Australian company. You can find them in a lot of witchcraft supply shops. I think you can find them online as well. So not as readily available, a little bit more expensive, but these are my absolute favorite incense sticks, and I really love using them. So yeah, you can of course also use loose mix incense, and I've done a whole video on loose mix incense, but it's just personal preference. It can be a little bit expensive, particularly if you're buying like fancy blends. It just depends if you like to use loose mix incense or you just want to have like an incense stick going. Last, this is a question I get asked all the time, is crystals. Now, I'm actually going to do a whole video on how to buy crystals, but I'm going to keep it really short and summarize it here for you. So my first suggestion, which admittedly I don't do because I've got plenty of crystals now, but is to look into your local gem and mineral fossicking Facebook groups. So this way you can try and find people that actually go finding crystals, mining crystals, but doing it, you know, ethically, doing it in small batches. You can even go out with some of them and actually find your own crystals. You might be able to even buy crystals from these people at affordable prices. So those are a really good place to look for. There's all sorts of Facebook groups. Also find out when your local gem and mineral fairs or gem shows are. There's quite a few in Sydney at different times around different places. I think there's a Facebook group which actually shows where all of the gem fairs are in Australia, but the reason I suggest gem and mineral shows or fairs is that they often are actually selling it to you at wholesale prices. They have really, really good prices. I have gotten some amazing pieces for very, very little money at these places. For instance, like tumble stones generally go for like $2 in these sorts of places. I've got some really fancy carvings that only cost me like $100 to $150 that would normally sell for over double that retail. So they're a really good place to look if you want to buy crystals and you are on a budget. Having said that, they don't happen all the time. So it might be something that you need to save and put aside some money for when they do come around. I remember one that I had saved and I had put aside some money to go there, and I spent my entire budget, and there were so many more things I wanted to buy from there. But that happens, and that's okay. The other thing is to keep an eye on witchy buy, sell, swap groups. Sometimes we'll have people which want to sell like a chunk of a crystal collection off, so they'll have like a big bundle of crystals. They won't tell you what they are, which is fine. You can ask in those gem and mineral fossicking groups. And yeah, that's a good way to build up your collection if that's something that you want to do. You can also look for your own stones and things. It doesn't matter if they're not crystals, they still have energy. And you don't actually have to even know what you're looking for. So I have a lot of stones which I've just found by chance. So like this is like, I think this is like a piece of quartz, but it's got black in it. So it's almost like it's got tourmaline in it, I don't know, but I really like the energy of this stone, and this is a stone that I do work with. There's a whole lot that you can do about that, but I'm going to do a video on crystal buying in the future as well. So those are my budget witch tips. Let me know if you have any more down in the comments, and I hope that you found it helpful. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.